All right, good morning, everybody. So I didn't get to a Friday posting because I went camping. Got off work, went camping, and was gone Saturday. So I'm kind of putting some stuff out here on Sunday, but you probably won't actually see these till Monday. But, that's just the way life goes. So anyway, we're coming back to another Ground Zero. We're going to talk about some more things that I found of interest on the Reddit. So again, this isn't anything necessarily that I'm making up. These are things you can certainly go and read for yourself, but just a great way to kind of share some of my thoughts about things that I'm seeing. And you could leave your own feedback or go to the Reddit and leave your own feedback if something really interests you. A lot of the things, though, that I've been seeing here on the Reddit, just one, there was like a new gameplay video, which I'm not going to link to because I want to encourage you to go to the Reddit. That seems to be the main forum right now that Sony's using to communicate. So these are things that I'm going to spend some time looking at and digging a little bit further. So what I'm actually going to be doing, though, is just kind of look at some of these topics, and they got some good ideas. So these are things that we've talked about when we've talked about the Dead Linger as well. It's just taking one zombie game and then, putting a different shell on it. But some of the ideas and concepts are still the same. And it's going to be interesting to see how the different companies, implement some of these thoughts and ideas. I mean, if they implement it, or the wish list. I know we spent a lot of time on the roadmap, specifically talking about the Dead Linger and features that they wanted. And I haven't seen a roadmap for the H1Z1, but you come to the forum, and it's almost like the player community is driving the roadmap. And then every once in a while, you'll pop into a particular topic, and Smedley or somebody from H1Z1 is like, oh, that's a pretty good idea. We'll look into that. So I could see potentially in the future an actual roadmap. So for now, though, just talk about these things, and of course they overlap. Like, for example, doors and windows need to be breachable by zombies. Yeah, Now we see that currently with the Dead Linger. Now the zombies aren't always the smartest, because I've seen a door that's been pushed open, and then the zombie got stuck on the open door trying to bash down an open door. But that it's there. Windows, certainly in the Dead Linger, zombies will come up, it looks like they headbutt the window, and then they crawl through the window. So in a game like the Dead Linger, that's a feature that's already there. And it is creepy as heck to see them come crawling in through the windows and stuff. Now it's bugged, of course, and so sometimes you'll see them try to crawl through, over an obstacle, and they end up floating up onto the second story. And then when they're done with the crawl animation, they're back down on the first floor. So, but it's there. And you would think that, yeah, that would definitely be a staple of this game. Now, what comes to mind is, how are they going to implement that? Because with the current structures that they have, like the already in-world structures, houses and things like that, I could see that that's pretty easy. They would just run to it. And I think from one of the videos we saw, it almost looks like they path to go around objects and then find the open door. I think it would be so much better when they're trying to path to you, the first window they come across, make a crawl through window animation. That would be super cool. And if they come to a door, then they want to try and bash down the door. Now, we have seen such little video footage from the game. I don't know yet if the buildings have doors on them. From some of the gameplay footage I saw, it looked like there were no doors at all. Maybe the wood's all rotted away. There appeared to be no glass on windows or anything like that. So there's certainly quite a few ways for zombies to get in, but definitely having doors on those structures and then have those be breachable by the zombies only makes sense, and it is technically possible to do. Now you might say, well, that might not be a PlanetSide 2 engine ability. Well, I tell you what, if a indie developed game on a Unity engine can put in breachable doors and windows by zombies, I would think that a multi-million-dollar company like Sony could do the same thing. Okay, so I'm talking pre-existing structures. but we do have player-made structures. Now, from the one clip that I saw, it looked like a building system similar to Rust. Now, I haven't played Rust, so I could be completely wrong, but just from gameplay footage I saw, it looked like you would gather up a bunch of items, and as long as you had enough items to fit a blueprint, you could create a structure. So in the gameplay footage I saw for H1Z1, it looked like that's kind of how they have it set up, is the person had X amount of items in their storage, I guess, and they pulled up the blueprint and they picked a small structure and stuck it in the world. And then they said later they're going to have snappable doors, so the doors snap into position properly. Now, in a game like Rust, you can make that door super strong, or your fortification super strong, and for what I've been told, you know, it takes like C4 to blow down barriers, and C4 is hard to make when, you know, you start off killing warthogs. So it's possible, but it's kind of like, that's like an end game type of thing. So with H1Z1, I do not think that your average zombie is ever going to be able to breach the strongest of player-made structures. And I am okay with that. That makes sense. If you make a huge concrete structure, well, I don't know what you can make, but let's just say, for example, a huge concrete structure with reinforced metal doors, you're safe. That is a safe house, so that makes sense. So I would think what would make sense in the realm of the player-made and player-craftable stuff, that will be breachable by the zombies. And that makes total perfect sense to me. So, I agree. Make sure the zombies can breach obstacles, and I do understand that should be within some sort of reason and limit. You know, if it's all wooden doors and things like that, glass, those will be shatterable and breachable. So, yeah, make sure that gets put into the game. Alright, I did see in here a topic on RVs. Well, yeah, they've talked about vehicles, but the thing is, the way they're going with this 15 years after this apocalypse has occurred, the idea being that there's pretty much nothing left of quality. Everything is run down. And some of the pictures we've seen of like some trailer park type stuff, it's all just super trashed. Now, I just realized first part of this is all black. I didn't give you something to look at. But let's take a look here. I have seen some stuff here. Well, you know, the cool thing about a podcast is you don't have to have a picture to look at. So just, you know, skip ahead about 8 minutes and you're fine. So let's take a look here at some H1Z1 pictures that I've seen here. Let's go images. Okay, so nothing new, nothing people haven't seen before, unless you haven't seen this, which is really disturbing on its own levels there. Alright, so here's a picture. I don't know if I can blow this up anymore. Yeah, of course I didn't blow up. That just took me right to the thing. Alright, so here's an example of what I'm seeing. Everything looks really tore up, rusted, broken down, but the potential here for RV is there. Now, they've already shown a Jeep, a drivable Jeep, and you can drive around in that. I think in the future you definitely could have room for RVs, trucks, so on and so forth, but kind of fitting in with the theme of the game, all of that stuff is pretty much broken down. So to have an RV, I think, would require a massive amount of trying to find materials, trying to find engine, tires, gas, whatever else you might need to take the RV shell that you found. And that's how I envision it, would be like a shell. So, okay, so here we go. See, here's an example of what I would call the shell from what I've seen in the H1Z1 type of game. See, some shells. There's no windows. The tires very well could be burnt out, missing. It's just the rims. There might be an engine, but the engine is broken down, pieces gone. You know, there's just so much that could be wrong. Now, here's an example. If I could find one, it just came to my mind. Stories, and let's look for images. Now, see, this game here has, well, they really changed how the game looks. In the game, they actually have, here we go. Not a good example. Well, this is a pretty example. See, they have RVs. So if you can see that, there's an RV. They also, it's not drivable to my knowledge. What I'm trying to see is if I could find one of their really gutted and just a shell remaining of a RV. You'd hope with all the hate put towards this game, there'd be a lot more screenshots that potentially would have something of interest here. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Okay, so, you know, the screenshots make the game look so much better than it really is. So here's the picture of the RV. So we've talked about that for the Deadlinger too. Like, how cool would that be to get an RV? Because an RV is like a rolling base. So how I envision it for, say, H1Z1 is you find the shell. So if you could imagine this, since it's really hard to see, I wonder if I can just blow up the image. Of course, nothing ever works out the way I like. You find the shell, and now you have to go and find the tires. You would then maybe, I would even be so cool as to say you have to flip the RV somehow. So you have the RV in kind of like, you know, a physics enabled type of environment, and you might actually have to find a way to flip the RV upright, attach tires, put an engine, or fix the engine, because maybe you just find generic engine parts. Like, I don't know how detailed they want to be, but you have to find a certain amount of materials to make the RV drivable. And I think that's kind of how they said that the Jeeps and things like that would be. So an RV would just be a nice extension of that. So let's say you get the RV running. What's the advantage of an RV? Well, the RV carries things. Now, in the Deadlinger, what they said that they want to do with equipment, and I think it's great because I really don't see a lot of games doing it, is they said instead of clicking on a vehicle and it opens up a grid for where you can place items, you actually 3D, you drop the physical model of that item into the trunk. So there's only a certain amount of guns you could fit. So you could probably attain the same amount of storage using a grid system, but I thought that was actually cool that you would physically pop open the trunk and drop your weapons into the trunk, and then you could close the trunk lid, you know. And instead of having a grid, you're actually seeing those 3D objects dropped into the trunk. So there's no grid system you interact with. So that would be a super advantage of, say, an RV, is it's going to store a lot of things. Like, that is a rolling armory. That is a rolling home that's got food storage, weapons, ammo, and then you can drive it from place to place. And I think that's cool because, you know, I play the Deadlinger the most. I really like that one. And one thing, though, that you can see is when you're in a particular spot, you're going to eventually drain the resources and the looting that you do from that spot. Like, sure, you may have killed off the zombies and just the occasional single zombie comes roaming through the area, but at some point your food stores will be gone, and then you'll have to move on or die of starvation. Well, then that's when you hop into the trusty RV, go rolling on up into the next community, and then that's your base of operations. From there, you can start clearing out an area and securing it from the zombies. So the RV is a rolling base. I mean, it's just brilliant. Now, what they've said they want to do in the Deadlinger is allow people to have the ability to customize their vehicles. So how cool would that be through the barricading system that you can attach spikes and plate armor and different things to your RV to make it more structurally sound against zombie hordes as you drive through the groups of zombies or as they come up to you and attack your RV. I think that would be a brilliant thing if they could add that into H1Z1. So not only have you restored this RV to just a working vehicle, but now it's armored as well. It has maybe a machine gun mount or two, and it's your rolling fortress. Even a semi-truck and trailer would be very cool too, kind of like this really huge Mad Max vehicle. And I think that would make sense for a apocalyptic slash zombie survival game. So I keep mentioning how that would be great against zombies, but just imagine the horror as just a survivor out walking around, and all of a sudden here comes like a convoy of these Mad Max vehicles rolling through, and are they friendly or are they not? It makes me think of one of the Resident Evil movies. I mean, they've made a few, but that's kind of how the survivors were traveling through this wasteland, was in this convoy of vehicles and stuff like that. So that's not an uncommon theme, and I think that would work great for H1Z1. I think they have the power to do it, and it would be nice to see those options come in. I don't think that would be an at launch kind of a thing, but that would be one of those things that they would be silly not to put that in. And I keep saying, let's look back at the Dead Linger. So the Dead Linger is a much smaller development team behind it, but those are things they're planning. Now, I do understand there's a difference between being able to deliver and having it planned. Those are things that Dead Linger have talked about doing for a long time, and they have a very, very slow development cycle. So that might not be something we get to see for a long time. But Sony, on the other hand, being a huge MMO development powerhouse, those are things that they could say they would put in, and could actually within a reasonable amount of time put something like that in. So I agree. Put the RVs in, and then let us be able to modify them to survive in this apocalypse world. Okay, so that was a pretty cool thought. And then another neat thought too that someone had: powerless pumps for moving water to your base camp. And I think, and again, I kind of draw back to some thoughts I've had, either from the Dead Linger or roadmap things I've read. But those are super important concepts for when you're developing like a home base. So not to take too much time on this, but what would be cool, let's see here. Powerless pumps, okay? Internet, be our friend. Oh, here, world's greenest water pump. There's a water pump. I was hoping for powerless, like a how about this? Solar powered water pump. How about that? Here's one. Kits. Okay, so here's a small picture. So here comes thoughts to my mind when we talk about powerless pumps for moving water to your base. Well, first of all, back in the 1800s, see, this is how I think at some point people would regress. We would regress to a pre-powered civilization, right? And we did a lot of these things prior to having power. Like, we did have wells and irrigation. Like the Romans, go back even further than that. People had irrigation. People had ways of moving water. Complicated, but you could do it, And a lot of people praise the Romans for aqueducts and stuff like that. And so it's interesting when people talk about what's going to happen in the apocalypse. People just think that we won't have any comfort whatsoever. Well, guess what? Prior to electricity, folks had water in their home. We had that. And so I would think that putting in tools like that, like solar power, was something I thought would be cool, because we have the technology for solar power. We're not going to forget that we knew how to do stuff, but it definitely would be more difficult to put together solar power panels. But that's the whole point of solar powered panels and things like that, is to run things that may require some power that makes them more efficient. But with that not there, you still can deliver water and have pumps. You go back and look at the Romans. I mean, they knew how to make heated floors, and they had their indoor bath houses, and those were even with heated water. It was all very complicated. You can go back and look at things like steam-powered doors that opened automatically. You go and watch those shows about ancient technology, and they used a lot of stuff with counterweights and pulleys, and they weren't electrically driven. They were all mechanically driven, but they had a lot of conveniences that we had today. Now, they didn't work the same, and you might not think they were conveniences, but they did have automatic opening doors. Not to the extent that we have, but these are things that technologically were possible, but it did involve pulleys and counterweights and different things. You can go, and I forget what they are, but they even had like these robots. You wound them up, but there's clockwork robots. They were more like puppets and dolls and things. But a lot of the technology that we think we're going to lose, to some degree, has existed prior to what we know it as of today. So having powerless water pumps to deliver water, yeah, makes total sense to me. If you ever watch Little House on the Prairie, those folks are going out to the pump and they're pumping the handle and up comes the water from the water well. So yeah, I think that would make perfect sense to have. So with that in mind, just some thoughts and things I read from the Reddit. Certainly there's quite a bit more, so go check it out and then leave some comments on things that you've seen, or maybe comment on some things that we've discussed today. We'll be coming back at you next week with some more ground zero topics to talk about. It's going to be a huge game. If even a portion of what folks are talking about get put into the game, this is going to be huge. And I certainly don't mind hopping onto the bandwagon. And if I was being paid to do this, then you could call me a complete sellout, because I am pretty excited. But then again, I haven't even seen a game yet. So I had to admit, it's like the dead linger. I am in love with the potential. I have to wait and see what we actually get to decide if this is going to be something I really fall in love with and support. So anyway, thanks for watching. Leave your thoughts and comments, and we will talk to you later. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye.